Good evening. Today is January the 13th, 2022, and the time is 6:30 p.m. I now call the regular meeting of ISD 191 Board of Education to order. I'll be filling in for Chair Miller, who is not here tonight, and I welcome everybody who is here in our audience as well as those watching online. Director Connor, would you please lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Director Alt,
Second.
second by Director Werb. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. The next order of business is the annual organization of the Board of Education. There are 13 items to this section of the agenda. We will start by filling the 4 board officer positions. Nominations do not require a second. The board chair will ask nominations 3 times before closing the nominations. Board members will need to vote only if there's more than 1 nomination for the position. The chair presides at all school board meetings and works with the superintendent on calling board meetings and establishing meeting agendas. At times, the chair is called upon to serve in a ceremonial capacity as the ranking elected representative of the school district. The chair countersigns all checks drawn by the treasurer. Are there any nominations for the office of board chair?
I'd like to nominate Director Chester as board chair.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Nominations for board chair are now closed. Director Chester is the only candidate nominated for the office of chair, and I hereby declare Director Chester elected chair by acclamation and direct the acting clerk to record it in the minutes. That's really weird. I have to say. I do want to send out a special thank you to Eric Miller for his leadership and service to our board and our community in 2021, and look forward to having him joining us at our next meeting. Now I will turn to the election of vice chair. The school board created the vice chair position in 1989 for the purpose of easing the workload of the chair. The vice chair serves as the chair when the chair is absent, assists with board operations, and plans the annual evaluation of the superintendent. Are there any nominations for the office of vice chair?
I nominate Scott Hume for the office of vice chairperson.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? I don't know how long you're supposed to pause. Nominations for vice chair are now closed. Director Hume is the only candidate nominated for office of vice chair. I hereby declare Director Hume elected vice chair by acclamation. Congratulations. The clerk presides at board meetings in the absence of the chair and the vice chair, and from a legal standpoint is responsible for board minutes, signing board-approved contracts, and calling school board elections. The clerk also countersigns all district checks. The routine duties of the clerk are performed by the superintendent's office and business office. Are there any nominations for office of clerk?
I would like to nominate Director Alt for the office of clerk.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Nominations for clerk are now closed. Director Alt is the only candidate nominated for office of clerk. I hereby declare Director Alt elected clerk by acclamation. Congratulations. The treasurer is legally responsible for the deposit and withdrawal of all district funds and reporting same to the school board. Checks drawn on school district accounts are signed by the treasurer. The routine duties of treasurer are performed by the business office. Are there any nominations for the office of treasurer?
I would like to nominate Director Werb as treasurer.
Are there any other nominations?
I didn't hear.
Oh, Director Werb.
Director Werb.
Oh, okay.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Nominations for treasurer are now closed. Director Werb is the only candidate nominated for the office of treasurer. I hereby declare Director Werb elected treasurer by acclamation. Congratulations. The next agenda items are salaries of board members. Salaries of school board members are set annually. Beginning on July 1st, 2019, salaries were set at $450 per month for each director, plus an additional monthly stipend of $50 for chair in recognition of the increased duties and expenses associated with that position. The recommendation is that salaries of board members be set or stay at $450 per month, that the chairperson receives an additional $50 per month, and in recognition of additional duties and expenses associated with the position. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
Moved by Director Alt.
A motion that it stays?
Yes.
We need a second first.
I'll second.
Seconded by Director Hume. Okay. Is there any discussion?
I say nay. I don't want it to stay at the amount. So that is my proposal.
So, point of order, it would be a motion to amend.
Okay. Yes, I'd like a motion to amend.
To amend the,
And the amendment needs to be specific.
Your mic.
The motion needs to be specific in
To
terms of
amend.
how you wish to amend.
I'd like to amend that the motion not stay at 450 as proposed. Of course, the chairperson should get the extra 50, but I amend that the stipend, or the school board stipend be what it was previous to 2021.
it was $450 in 2019. So it's been 3 years.
Oh, 3 years? Okay, I'm sorry. I was given the information that it was amended and lowered as of 2020,
It was 2019 when it was lowered.
Yeah.
2019.
Yep.
It was increased, I'm not sure when.
I
And
thought
then
it was
in
2020.
2019, it went back down to the 450 per month.
Oh, 20, okay, so that's what I mean, 2020. So before 2020. But you're
Before
saying it was actually
2019.
lowered at 2019, not
Right,
2020.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry, I got the wrong information, because I asked about that.
It used to be 550.
Yes, that's.
So you want to propose that it go to
Correct.
550?
Correct.
So should we just restate that? So you want to amend?
Yes.
You want to amend the motion?
That it be increased to 550, just put it that way.
Okay. Do we have a second on the amendment?
I'll second.
Okay. So we have a vote on the amended.
Discussion first,
Discussion.
on the amendment only.
On the amendment only. Okay, so is there any discussion on the amendment only? Okay. This is really tiny to read.
So is this, so I can discuss something? Okay. I would just like to read something. I propose the school board stipend be increased back to $550 is the amount, is my understanding. I believe everyone on the school board displays sufficient time and concern for our community along with our employment and other responsibilities and obligations. This is one reason we should be compensated for this time and service like our school administrators. As it is proposed, school administrators be awarded a compensation increase. Therefore, the second reason, as a school board member, we vote on ideas and opinions that we feel best serve our district and community, as well as oversee the decisions proposed by our superintendent, giving us administrative actions with our voting. I realize our dedication, both seen and unseen, have individual passions we all carry with us for service to our district. However, though I do not expect a salary as a school board member, I do feel the amount of the stipend that was that I was quoted before and during my campaign for this position is fair compensation for this community service and duty. Thank you for your time.
Other discussion?
I don't necessarily disagree with what you've said. Certainly, I think we all put in a lot of time and effort and energy, and we all have a huge commitment to the district and the success of the district. That said, the concern I would have is, I mean, obviously, there's a budgetary impact that I am not prepared to support at this moment, given our many other financial challenges in the district. I would love for us to get to a point where we could go back to where the salary was prior to 2019. Unfortunately, I don't think we are there yet. So that's why I will not be voting in support of the amendment.
Can I just get some clarification on why it was changed? I mean, I guess I wasn't aware that it was lowered. I didn't know that, so.
I'm happy to share. I'm the one who introduced it being lowered when I was first elected and joined the board, because we were in a dire financial, I mean, not dire, but a huge financial position of having to cut significantly here in the district. And as leaders sitting amongst this table, I wanted to ensure that we were putting forth and walking our talk and having to make cuts, and therefore asked to lower our stipend.
Thank you for that explanation. That makes sense.
And I just feel now with a lot of the increases that we have given across the board and a lot of the government funds and how we're sitting right now financially, from our reports from other meetings, it seems like $100 more a month should not be such a strain. That's just my feeling.
Director Alt?
Chair, thank you, Chair. I have to concur with Director Hume. I don't disagree with the aspiration of your amendment, Director Connor. For two reasons, I would not be able to support this. First, because of the budgetary concerns that Director Hume mentioned. But also, you know, for me, this was always about the community service, and the compensation was not something that I was even seeking out or aware of when I ran for office, and it was, you know, kind of a generous gift in my opinion. So that's my approach with the stipend. It's not necessarily understanding the monetary remuneration as elected officials that we're receiving, and the time that we do put into it. At this point, I think combined the budgetary concerns and also just knowing that it's a very small amount, but if it's going toward the students, that's where my heart is.
And just adding into the discussion, I too do not disagree with you in the work that we do and the value that we give. And at the same time, I support and agree with Director Hume and Director Alt, and having been the person who presented this in the first place, I still like modeling, knowing that we still have budgetary concerns, and so I'm still not comfortable seeking an increase.
May I make one additional
Yes.
point that I just thought of while you were talking? I do think we may want to revisit this topic at some point in the coming year.
Yeah.
One thing I wonder, maybe it's because I was at the MSBA conference all day today, but, you know, the amount of time people are spending on school boards has been going down and down and down, and it's been harder in a lot of places to find people willing to run. I'm not saying, I mean, I agree with you that nobody should be running for school board because of the huge paycheck. But at the same time, you know, looking at it through our equity lens that we're always talking about is the fact that the stipend is what it is that a potential barrier for some to want to throw their hat into the ring to run for school board? And is that something we may want to consider in the future? So I'm going to put that out there for the future. But it doesn't change my vote for tonight.
No, I think that's a sound thing you said, because knowing that most of this is really effective the budgetary year of the school district. So, and, you know, we could revisit knowing that the budget will be approved for July for
Right.
2022, 2023. So,
And I also think that's very fair, because again, I didn't get into this job for a salary.
Sure.
right.
But, you know, I had a passion like everyone else, but I also thought the amount was a little more. And I just think the time that I spend, like I said, seen and unseen, for all the things I do behind the scenes, it's, you know, it's very time consuming.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I enjoy it.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the amended
The amendment first.
amended vote to increase to $550 a month, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
The motion does not pass. Now we revert back to the original motion.
Fun
We're gonna
first
get
vote
this.
as chair.
So we have a motion by Director Alt, a second by Director Hume, for our recommendation for the salaries to remain at $450 a month with the $50 additional for the chair position in recognition of the additional work involved. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yeah.
Did you say nay?
Yeah, but
Okay, so, because I think Jamie required, there you go. The motion carries. Okay, so that was a really great discussion, so I appreciate that. Regular meetings of the school board are typically held on the second and fourth Thursday of each month. However, board meetings may be scheduled during other weeks to accommodate scheduling needs. Regular school board meetings will be held at Diamond Path Education Center, 200 West Burnsville Parkway in Burnsville, Minnesota. In the case of inclement weather, the board meeting will be scheduled Monday at the same time and place unless Monday is a holiday, in which case a special meeting will be posted. Meetings not scheduled on the second or fourth Thursday of the month have an asterisk next to the meeting on the recommendation. Board members, please note, June 16th, 2022 is on the third Thursday, and September 29th, 2022 is on the fifth Thursday. The recommendation is that all regular meetings of Independent School District 191 Board of Education commence at 6:30 p.m. on the dates as noted, with the meetings conducted at the Diamond Head Education Center and Cablecast. Board listening sessions will be scheduled from 5:45 to 6:15 p.m. before regular board meetings. Do I have a motion to approve this recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Director Werb,
second.
second by Director Connor. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Items G through M pertain to calendar year 2022. They are of routine nature, and although board action is required, discussion is usually unnecessary. I recommend approval of all resolutions as a single consent agenda item. In the event a board member wishes to discuss any item, it should be removed from the list so that it may be receive individual attention. Please note that our committee meetings will be approved at our board meeting on January 27th. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items G through M?
So moved.
Moved by Director Hume,
Second?
second by Director Alt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. With that, we move to the information portion of our meeting. First, we'll receive an update about District 191's efforts to implement COVID-19 related educational and public health guidance issued by the MDE and MDH from Dr. Teresa Battle, Superintendent, and Dr. Amy Petrowski, Director of Student Support Services. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Chester and members of the board. Before we begin our slide presentation, I have a few remarks to share. Students and staff are concerned about the surge, yet they continue to pursue and participate in high quality and deliver high quality academic experiences. Our teachers continue to provide these wonderful opportunities for our students, even in the midst of this pandemic. We have continued to deliver on instruction and one of our core values, student agency. This is when students make choices that personalize their learning. Later tonight, in Board Student Representative Zoe Olsen's report, you will hear about students' participation in youth in government, where students debate issues with students across the state, and students' participation in our own DECA district competition that seeks to prepare students for leadership and entrepreneurship. Another example I learned of just yesterday from Danielle Christie, one of the avid instructors at Burnsville High School. She shared that a 9th grade avid student submitted an essay for Best Prep Student Spotlight competition and was selected as a winner out of 165 submissions. As we all know, COVID continues to be an ongoing challenge, with the Omicron variant currently surging throughout our community and in our schools. As I placed Nicollet Middle School on distance learning last week and district-wide for today and tomorrow, I wanted to share the factors that I considered in making my decision. This included students being out of school absent due to the effects of COVID, and that would include confirmed cases, those students with symptoms or who were sick, and students who were considered close contacts. I also considered staff absences due to the same effects of COVID, and also unfilled substitute positions for both teachers and educational assistants. We all know that in-person learning is best, and considering the pandemic, it's best when mitigation strategies can be employed. But when adequate supervision is jeopardized, if we had continued in-person learning, that was the deciding factor. Too many staff members out. I do want to also include not only school staff, but our food and nutrition staff. We are very fortunate our bus contractor, Smitty & Son, has implemented a backup plan, so we have been able to maintain transportation. But for example, our current director of food service, as well as the supervisor, had been filling in at the schools to serve those meals. And so I will continue to monitor when students return to school on Tuesday, January 18th. So I will continue to look at that data daily for each school, continue consultation with our COVID-19 health team, the COVID-19 leadership team, our regional support health consultant, and our COVID-19 advisory group as we continue to respond to the pandemic. I am so thankful for your continued trust, the trust of parents and students, the trust they've placed in our district to make the best possible decisions, and as we continue to respond to the pandemic. I'm also very grateful for staff who continue to work in this unimaginable reality we are in. And lastly, I'm grateful for the partnership with community agencies. A few I'd like to mention are Dakota Family and Children's Clinic, Headway, and Park Nicollet. And once again, the 191 COVID Advisory Group and the Regional Support Team. One more thing before we move on to the health data and updates from Minnesota Department of Education and Minnesota Department of Health. I want to share that our COVID-19 dashboard has the data for weekly COVID-19 cases and the number of students quarantining or in isolation. You may find the dashboard via a link on our district website under COVID-19 resources. Now I'll turn it over to Amy Petrowski, Interim Director for Student Support Services.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Battle. Good evening, Chair Chester and Board of Directors. I will be going over the COVID report for Bernie, who cannot be with us tonight. Our state and community continues to be in high level of community transmission for COVID-19. The Omicron variant is most prevalent in COVID cases and was detected in Minnesota shortly after Thanksgiving. We have learned that the Omicron spreads more quickly than the original virus, but in comparison to Delta, the transmission rate is unknown, but speculated to be twice as transmissible than Delta. There are higher rates of breakthrough infection and reinfection occurring in Omicron. Current vaccines are expected to protect against severe illnesses, hospitalizations, and deaths due to infection of the Omicron variant. Data for Minnesota. Ooh, should I be moving this?
Yes, please,
sorry.
you can move to the next slide. Sorry about that. Nope, they will.
On to data for Minnesota. Here we go. Positivity rate for week 52, which is December 26th through December 31st in Minnesota, is 16.7%. Rates for Dakota County during week 52 is 18.9%, which is up from 8.7% last week. Scott County is at 19.8% for week 52, which is up from 9.3%. The breakthrough infection rate as of January 5th is at 4.8%. The last board meeting was at 3.1%. The 7-day case rate positivity cases for 100,000 people. Currently in Dakota County, the case rate is 1,230.48%, which is 69%, which is an increase from last week, which is 727.7. This is a record high for Dakota County and is the 6th highest county in the state of Minnesota for case rates. For Scott County, the case rate is 1,697 per 100,000. This rate during the last board meeting was 509.77. Dakota County had 17 newly reported deaths in the past week. Dakota County has the 3rd highest death rate in the state. A topic that has not been discussed previously in the board report is influenza. Influenza cases continue to be reported. Minnesota total cases reported through January 8th is 418. In comparison, the total for last year was 35. 80% of the cases are among children and young adults. This is important because we see hospitalization for Omicron. We also see hospitalizations for influenza. This continues to strain the health community. For ISD 191, cumulative for the school year, we have been informed of 148 positive cases among staff. Comparison to the last board meeting was 65. For students cumulative for the school year, we have been informed of 943 cases. Comparison to the last board meeting, 296. This week thus far, for students and staff, we have been informed of 258 cases this week alone. We would like to thank the community for helping us create a symptom-free zone and students and staff staying home when they're ill. We have learned today that Vault and the Minnesota Department of Health extended the contract for the use of the optional saliva screening test kits. Next week, we'll continue to offer the saliva screening to interested staff until the supply is exhausted. We will be transitioning to testing through the Midwest Coordination Center, and we are finalizing up the details for the staff testing program. We continue to partner with Dakota Child and Family Clinic in Burnsville to provide PCR testing for students, families, and staff. Last week, they completed 140 tests. This week, they have completed 56 tests. We received the completion of our first and second order of home test kits over winter break, which involved 11 pallets. Thank you to the operations for making the delivery of these pallets a very smooth process. The goal of these kits is to get these kits in homes. All students have had the opportunity for receiving one kit. Additional kits have been made available through the health office as needed and as requested. Staff have had the opportunity to receive 2 test kits. We have placed an order for kits and will continue to develop a distribution plan, as well as explore additional resources to provide free kits to our community. On to some positives. Ooh, I'm ahead of myself, I think. Sorry. Students ages 5 to 17 can now receive the COVID vaccination booster through the emergency use of authorization. Last board meeting, Bernie presented the vaccination rates as of December 9th. We are seeing an increase in vaccination rates among our students, with the largest increase of our 5 to 11-year-olds. On December 9th, the board information, the elementary rate for the second dose, those receiving the second dose, was 4.39%. Through the first week of January, that has been an increase to 17.51%. At the middle school, the second dose, we had 35.75%. Now we are at 42.6%. At the high school, which includes BAS, the second rate, students receiving the second rate as of December 9th was 56.1%, now at 58.1%. We continue to partner with our local public health and Minnesota Department of Health to provide vaccination opportunities to our communities. On January 9th, Minnesota Department of Health Clinic was hosted at Burnsville High School for second doses and boosters. We learned today that Dakota County will be hosting a seniors and caregivers clinic at our senior center on January 20th from 10 to 2. More information can be found on our website. Scott County continues to offer vaccination clinics for students and adults. For the most updated clinic information, refer to the Scott County websites, as appointments are filling quickly and some of the age groups on the slides may no longer be available on certain days. The state of Minnesota is currently offering a $200 gift card incentive for 5 to 11-year-olds to complete the vaccination of 2 doses series February 28th. This ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. We will share that information with the updated vaccination clinics that we received today. Scott County changed their website today, and so we'll get that information out to families. The next 4 slides, so we can move on to the next slide, are now moot. They were about the federal OSHA emergency temporary standard. However, today, the Supreme Court ruled on the ETS, and this was the requirement that employers with over 100 employees would have to institute either a vaccination policy or vaccination or test policy. They did uphold one part of the ETS, but essentially they struck down the rule in other cases. So for us, this means that we will not be required to implement a vaccinated or weekly testing program that covers every employee, but some employees may still be covered by the rule. Staff and I will be gathering more information, and I will update the board. And if we do need to bring a policy forward, we once again will have it at a public board meeting. With that, that concludes the slide presentation, but I have a couple other COVID updates. So last week, the Minnesota Department of Education shared the following message with superintendents and charter school leaders. The CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, released additional information about quarantine and isolation. One of the major changes is if that you come into close contact with someone with COVID-19 and should quarantine because you are not in one of the following groups: ages 18 and older and completed the primary series of recommended vaccine, but have not received a recommended booster shot when eligible. If you received the single-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine, completing the primary series over 2 months ago and have not received a recommended booster shot. And lastly, you are not vaccinated or have not completed a primary vaccine series. The new CDC guidance change is that you should stay home and away from other people for at least 5 days, day 0 through day 5, after your last contact with someone who has COVID-19. The date of your exposure is considered day 0. Wear a well-fitting mask when around others at home if possible. They also updated the guidance for isolation. Everyone who has presumed or confirmed COVID-19 should stay home and isolate from other people for at least 5 full days. Remember, day 0 is the first day of symptoms or the date of the day of the positive viral test for asymptomatic persons. MDE also shared the CDC guidance applies to the general population, including K-12 schools. The Minnesota Department of Health at that time was reviewing the detailed guidance and will be updating materials to align with the CDC recommendations. They shared that MDH will have updated guidance documents and materials early next week. And in the meantime, we can continue to follow current MDH guidance on their website or refer to the new CDC guidance. In summary, those revised guidelines allow for a shortened quarantine and isolation under certain circumstances, including strict adherence to masking. I shared this information with our COVID-19 advisory group to get feedback about whether we should adopt the CDC guidance immediately or we could wait for Minnesota Department of Health. Overwhelmingly, there was consensus to adopt immediately. Yesterday, MDA provided additional guidance to school nurses, and they have now shared that information. Staff and I have reviewed the guidance, and we will transition to the updated CDC guidance for staff. Beginning Tuesday, January 18th, and tomorrow, district communication will be sent to staff. I have not yet made a determination about students because the health team and I still need to finalize a few details. With that, I'm going to ask Lisa Ryder, our Executive Director of Business Services, to share the last portion of our report regarding operational updates. It's been quite a busy week.
Thank you, Dr. Battle. Good evening, Chair Chester and directors of the board. During this latest transition to distance learning, our custodial staff will be deep cleaning our high-touch areas at school sites. In addition, we have ordered N95 masks for staff, and we expect delivery on Monday. Custodial staff will continue to use mitigation strategies to support our response to the pandemic. Our food and supply chain shortages remain a constant concern. We are aware of several area schools, South Washington County, Hastings, Stillwater, Inver Grove Heights, South St. Paul, who have been unable to purchase the 8-ounce milk in paper cartons due to a nationwide shortage. We expect to be affected by this also at some point. Milk is required to be offered with a breakfast and lunch. However, students are not required to take it if they have sufficient number and the correct type of other foods on their tray, or as part of their reimbursable meal. Having potable water available during meals is a USDA requirement. Cups are also severely depleted in the supply chain. So we will be encouraging students to bring water bottles from home. If and when we are affected by this shortage, we plan to first ration or discontinue our milk at our secondary schools by either not offering it with one of the daily meals or not at all, and then proceeding the same at the elementary schools. We may or may not be able to offer substitute products such as a 10-ounce water bottle or juice, as those also are severely limited. We will begin to communicate this information to our parents, guardians, and students. We know that Minnesota Department of Education and the U.S. Department of Agriculture are aware of the supply chain struggles, and they do understand if the milk requirement cannot be met. That concludes our operational report.
And that also includes the COVID-19 report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Battle, Amy, and Lisa. Do board members have any comments or questions?
I have two questions. Lisa, you mentioned the N95 masks that are coming. There are enough for all staff to have them? Or?
We have ordered enough for a few to be dispersed to all staff. We're trying to get through the surge.
Right.
So we've ordered enough masks that we think will get us through that surge. Just it kind of depends on how long this is.
Of course.
We do know that our order was like, get your PO in today or else. And so we're not certain how easy it's going to be to reorder
Right.
if what we did order isn't sufficient to get us through the surge.
I'm glad to hear that we have those coming, because it's been in the news quite a bit this week of other places that are having a hard time finding them for their staff. So thank you for being on top of that. I did have one other clarification. I think I heard you correctly, but for the new 5-day CDC requirement, that applies equally whether or not someone is vaccinated? It's just if they have symptoms or...
I have to go back.
I think I heard you say if they test positive, then they have to quarantine for 5 days. And my assumption is, I guess, whether or not they are vaccinated. If they're symptom-free after that 5 days.
Didn't you say
It
that?
says you are not vaccinated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not vaccinated.
If you're not vaccinated. I'm rereading.
Okay, but if
And
you
I'm
are
looking at
vaccinated,
Amy and,
so is it different if you are vaccinated?
Brian or Amy, is it different if you are vaccinated?
For the 5-day quarantine? Yes. It does not make a difference. If you're positive, you are in a 5-day quarantine.
Okay.
If you're
That's what I was
vaccinated or
wanting to
not.
double check.
Yes.
Thank you.
Regardless
Nurse's
of-
call was very lengthy yesterday.
Yes.
And I'm not a nurse, so I
I
was
know you're
not
not.
on the call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Amy.
Right.
I had a question. I know you have those two things, the milk and the cups, but is there anything else that we foresee that may be affected, that we are looking at?
We have
Could be
had,
affected by the supply chain?
right, we've had some changes to our menus on a daily basis depending upon, because oftentimes we're ordering things, but whether or not it actually shows up in the delivery can sometimes surprise us. And so the milk cartons is something that is pretty stable for every single meal and is in such demand by everybody. So that's one that is going to be like the first kind of hurdle where we actually have to try and find some other means and method to facilitate that process with our students so they have something to drink, right? Now, we know we have our water available in our schools and such, but bringing a water bottle from home seems to be the best method for our students to be able to have, a container that they're accustomed to, that they know is clean, and that they can then use themselves throughout the day as well.
Okay.
My understanding, what I heard on the news, was that it wasn't so much a milk shortage, but the cartons themselves? Okay.
Yep.
So if we could still get the milk, children couldn't bring their own vessel, their water barrel or something from home to fill with milk? That would be too time-consuming, or?
I think the challenge there is milk can spoil if it's left too
Oh,
long in a container,
right.
so that would be the concern. We want to make sure that we're,
True.
we can't rely upon
Right,
that.
right, okay. Director, oh,
Thank you, Chair Chester. Kind of dovetailing on the dairy conversation, and thank you for sharing that fact. I wasn't aware that it was the cartons. Beyond making sure that students have something to drink, I also think about, the benefits of dairy in general. And if they're not getting milk, are other forms of dairy also a concern? Are they an option to replace, add in?
Yeah, so when they create their menus and as they try and shift things that may not show up for us, they're always looking at the components of the meal. And so, knowing that we may not have the dairy in the milk, they'll be looking for other means to try and meet that requirement.
Good, thank you. And a couple more questions. I have probably 4 total. Clarification for Amy. I imagine that BEST was also included in the BHS numbers.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yep, staff and students.
Thank you. Now if I can read my writing. And a clarification for Dr. Battle. In terms of quarantining, it's not something that we regulated, it's self-regulated and people opt in? Or, how do we know? I guess it doesn't really matter whether they're vaccinated or not, people are still going to have to quarantine for 5
You're
days.
Yes,
So-
even if you're a close contact and you don't
Got it.
have
Okay.
COVID.
And then the last question, Lisa. Sorry. I should have asked it while you were there. So in terms of, appreciating that our schools need to be cleaned, we also know, I believe, it's pretty much been proven that COVID is not, something that survives on surfaces for a really long time. We're not spending an inordinate amount of time cleaning beyond what we normally would.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we're not conducting overtime to do additional cleaning necessarily, but we are taking our time when we know no one's there. The classrooms are not getting dirty throughout the day, so instead we're going to use that time to hit these other areas just to make sure we got them clean and for the surfaces as the students do return and staff as well.
And there's flu too, as Amy pointed out, so.
Yep.
There's a lot of benefits to a clean school, even if it's not COVID.
Exactly. Those are my questions, thank you.
I had one other
right.
that I just thought of.
Yes.
It's kind of my night for thinking of things midstream. So for the distribution of the test kits, I saw a social media post this week, many social media posts this week of people looking for rapid tests. And on one of the ones that I saw, somebody replied, if your kid is in 191, call your school because they should be able to get them. So it got me wondering, what are we doing to make sure, to really get the message out to all of our families so that they know that these test kits are available? I don't know what that person's circumstance was, but it just made me think that there's at least, some families out there that may want to take advantage of this and aren't aware for whatever reason.
I received a message because my child's school has them, so I did
Oh, I
get
did too.
contacted.
Yeah,
So,
but maybe the emails aren't always seen by
that-
everyone.
So social media, emails, district written communication, translated into different languages,
And it's
and
available.
word of mouth. I've heard that too.
That
Parents
worked on that
tell them,
social
"Hey,
media
you go
post
to the
because she was
school
very
and pick
grateful and
up."
was going to
So
call her
word of
school the
mouth.
next day.
But it's available at each school or just in the secondaries?
Each school. Amy will provide more clarification.
Yep, absolutely. Every school received enough test kits for every student to be going home. We just asked that the parents come pick them up because of the stuff, I guess, inside the test kits is not safe for students to take home on a bus. We didn't want students swabbing noses on the bus. And so that was that was one of the concerns that we had, and so we asked that parents come pick them up. They are able to still come pick them up if they connect with the office. We still have test kits available for those who haven't received it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more question for Amy. In the presentation, I noticed, I don't think I heard it, but I saw it on the screen about the booster moving from 6 months to 5. Is that true?
Yes, that is correct. That has come through CDC. I think January 2nd or 3rd that information came out.
So the
Absolutely.
recommendation is that people go in at 5 months after their second shot for a booster.
Yeah, that is correct.
Thank you.
I appreciate the question because there are many details in
Yep.
all of this updated guidance that happened. So people may have not caught that piece.
Thank you very much. I think we're done with our questions. So great report. A lot happening.
Thank you.
Coming back from break. We'll move on to our student representative report. Zoe Olsen, our student representative, is not able to attend tonight's meeting, but she did record a report for the meeting, so we will receive her report via video. And we thank you, Zoe, for doing this for us. Oh, there's no volume.
No sound, Stacy.
Nope. Still no sound. Sorry. Is on the computer?
Probably the button I always forget to check when I share videos.
Oh,
Here's our
yeah.
problem.
Add sound to broadcast, yeah. Yeah. Oh, no, it's on. Toggle mute.
Going back to,
All right, here we go.
oh yeah, maybe that worked now.
As many of you know, the recent surge in COVID-19 cases has been very challenging for students in the ISD 191 school district. Although students do not relish going back to distance learning, being away from their friends, and seemingly going back to the place we were at a year ago, many Burnsville High School students were relieved to hear that we would be going to
Oops, sorry.
distance learning this Thursday and Friday. Ever since returning from winter break, there has been a great deal of anxiety among students. Many classes have sat half empty with an unprecedented number of students homesick, and the students that have remained in person have been concerned about whether they will catch the virus and bring it home to their families. This anxiety has only been boosted when some of their peers do not adequately wear their masks to completely cover their mouth and nose. In addition, it has been an extremely challenging time academically. When students miss class, particularly when they are ill, they are unable to receive the same direction as in-person students. It can be very challenging to make up work and not fall behind. Even when students are in class, their learning experience has been altered when there are not enough students to do group activities or teachers have to rearrange schedules at the last minute. As the end of the semester is in 1 week, students are worried about completing their work on time and maintaining success. Many students feel hopeful, though, that this transition to distance learning will be a beneficial reset to help alleviate some of the problems that they have been facing lately. Yet, there are still worries with this uncertainty that distance learning brings. Despite the numerous challenges students have been facing, many students have found successes recently. Students who are part of Burnsville High School DECA attended the district competition this past Friday. Students participated in role plays, mock sales demos, and interviews, and took a business-related test. In a competition with hundreds of students from nearby areas of the state, 11 out of the 15 students that competed qualified for the state DECA competition. Although this was one of the smallest groups of DECA students ever, it was also one of the highest percentage of students that qualified for state. These students will go on to compete at the state DECA competition March 6th through 8th. Although additionally, 6 people placed in the top 3 of their categories, and some placed in multiple categories. After the many challenges that everyone has been facing recently, it has been great to see so many students doing so well. Additionally, this past weekend, around 35 students attended the Minnesota YMCA Youth and Government Conference. It was a 4-day conference that was essentially a simulation of statewide government in Minnesota. Students served as legislators, judges, attorneys, lobbyists, and more in various program areas including trial and appellate courts, the legislative branch, governor and lieutenant governor's cabinets, and media. Of the 35 students that attended, nearly all were appointed officials, taking on statewide leadership roles. Additionally, 2 Burnsville students served their fellow delegates as elected officials, a few of a small group of students that worked for months to plan the conference. In an exciting election, 2 more Burnsville students were elected by their fellow delegates to be the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the Chief Judge of District Court at Youth and Government 2023. Throughout the weekend, students learned to have respectful conversations and discuss solutions to meaningful real-world problems while having a hands-on learning experience. It was amazing to see so many students come together to have fun while learning about the decision-making process that has a huge impact on the lives of individuals. These wonderful experiences students are having give me hope for the future and the rest of the school year. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Zoe, for this report. I get so excited about students involved in government and kind of very hopeful with our future. Next, we will receive a report from Dr. Teresa Battle, Superintendent.
Thank you, Chair Chester and members of the board. Because of the pandemic, we spend a lot of time talking about the operational side of our work, and rightly so. But for the report tonight, I want to highlight a new publication that should have arrived in our families' homes last week, called The Wayfinder. It's a publication that is entirely focused on the stories of who we are as the 191 community. It will be printed twice a year and delivered directly to families and made available in schools and possibly more broadly in the community. This first issue shared stories about finding passion and turning it into purpose. Stories like Ann Werner Dempsey, a former chiropractor who became a science teacher and then helped establish and build the health sciences pathway at Burnsville High School. And Bailey Fox, a Nicollet student leader whose personal experiences fuel her passion to work as a mentor for her peers and as a member of her Schools Where Everybody Belongs program, or WEB. And also the story of Burnsville High graduate and Hall of Fame member Tracy LaLibert, who found a passion for helping children when she was in junior high and turned it into a career as a child welfare practitioner, researcher, and policy advocate. These personal stories are so central to our Pathways approach. We recognize and celebrate that everyone's path is unique. Every student finds their own path in their own time. Our job is to help them find it and give them the opportunities they need to blaze a path for themselves. It is so easy to get lost in our daily response to COVID, but the Wayfinder provides a good reminder of what we are really doing for our students and families, and I think this issue came out at the perfect time. If you want to see the Wayfinder, you can find it online at isd191.org/blog. If anyone wants a printed copy, contact the communications office at communications@isd191.org. And that concludes my report for tonight. Yay, Wayfinder.
It's beautiful. I was very excited to receive mine. Yes.
yes.
Director Alt has a
Just a question. It was a breath of fresh air, first off. It really, it was such a beautiful thing to come home, to come home and find it in the mail, and I still haven't gotten through all of it. I know it's been shared with families. Have we also shared it with partners and our key communicator group?
We will start. A few have received it. We have printed copies, and
Yeah.
And I actually shared it today at the MSBA presentation I presented, and Director Scott Hume was in the audience, and I shared it there too.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Battle. Are there any other reports from board members tonight? Realizing that the second board meeting of the month is when we have committee reports, so these would be other reports.
Well, as Dr. Battle just said, I've been at the Minnesota School Board Association conference all day today. Attended, the opening speaker was I forget her name, was it Kristen something? The daughter of John Miller, who Question Behind the Question author. He was not able to attend, but his daughter works for him, and so she was the speaker. She was quite good. I was impressed. And then had the opportunity to attend a few sessions in the afternoon, one of which was the one Dr. Battle presented with our partners about facilities evaluations that we did a few years ago. And then the other session that I was also really, really enjoyed was about closing the achievement, the graduation rate gap between students of color and white students, which apparently the Richfield School District has been quite successful at. So that was a really, really good session that I was able to attend, and I'll be going back for day 2 tomorrow. And that concludes my short report.
Thank you, Director Hume. Any other reports? Okay. Now we will move to the business portion of our meeting. Although board action is required, it is generally unnecessary to hold a discussion on these items. In the event a board member wishes to discuss an item, that item will be moved for separate consideration. Do board members wish to remove any of the items on this consent? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Director Hume,
Second?
second by Director Werb. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. The first item under new business is to approve the 2-year extension of the revised lease for a portion of our Cedar School with Intermediate District 917. Lisa Ryder, Executive Director of Business Services, will present the recommendation. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. A little bit of history regarding the lease that we have at the Cedar School with Intermediate 917. It was the school year of 2012-13 in which the lease began, and then into that year, it was determined that they needed to modify some space for the SUN program, at which point then we revised that lease. And at that time, then, it is the current lease we're working off from. It is a 10-year current lease, and what is being asked for at this point in time is to approve an extension of the existing lease for 2 additional years. The expectation of the continued lease is that it would be the same amount of square footage, which is 21,629 square feet. Because we are sharing the building and our BOS program is there, our costs for the common area maintenance and the custodial services and such is at this point shared. And so that is reflected also in the rates that you see. It is intended that this revision or amendment to the lease, excuse me, the 2-year extension, would terminate then on June 30th, 2024, unless other parts of the existing lease that we have were emphasized and utilized to shorten that time period. So with that, the recommendation is that the Board of Education approve the 2-year extension of the revised lease for a portion of our Cedar School with Intermediate 917.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved?
Moved by Director Alt,
Second.
second by Director Connor. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Great. The next item on the agenda is to authorize Superintendent Battle to sign the joint powers agreement between Dakota County and ISD 191 for interagency early intervention services. Dr. Battle, Superintendent, will be presenting the recommendation.
Chair Chester and members of the board, tonight I do bring forward the Birth to 8 Joint Powers Agreement for your review and approval for me to sign. A little bit of background. Birth to 8 was created via Minnesota legislative action in the 2017 special session. It is an initiative that brings essential partners and services together to assure that children reach key developmental milestones from birth to age 8. The goal is to have 100% of identified participants meet the state proficiency reading target by spring of 3rd grade and have their families receive the necessary support to succeed. Participating districts include us, of course, Inver Grove Heights, West St. Paul, and South St. Paul. The other partners are Dakota County Community Services, Public Health, and Social Services. Developmental milestones are tracked for participants. We enroll families through our early childhood family education, early childhood special education, kindergarten, screenings, and enrollment and transfers. Also, there are referrals via WIC, the Women, Infants, and Children Program recipients. Through WIC, 35 children and their families connected to our school district in 2019. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, there was quite a pause on this initiative, and with this agreement approved by Dakota County, and now us and the other districts will approve, we hope to jumpstart the initiative again. So with that, the recommendation is that the Board of Education authorizes me, Superintendent Battle, it is somewhat weird to read your own name, to sign the joint powers agreement between Dakota County and ISD 191 for interagency early intervention services.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Director Connor,
Second.
second by Director Werb. Is there any discussion? Director Alt?
Thank you, Chair Chester. Just a couple of questions. So we're Burnsville-Eagan-Savage School District. The students that can benefit from this JPA, are they strictly Burnsville residents of Dakota County, or will students who live in the Savage side of the district also benefit?
Yes, so if you look at the referrals we receive, it does include kindergarten students. So yes, and anyone in our early childhood special education and our early childhood family education in Dakota County. It's not the Scott County residents.
Got it. So strictly,
Right,
strictly
it's
Dakota County
strictly
residents.
Dakota
Okay.
County.
I figured that was the case, but I just wanted to be sure. And then the other question was on page 2, under Article 4, 4.1. Talks about maternal child health nurses will attend their clients' individual family support plan team meeting. Just wondering what that might look like.
What number is that again?
4.1.
4.1. And the section is the meeting.
That the nurses will attend. Assist. Liaison.
Will attend their client's
It's in the-
individual
yeah.
family support plan meeting?
Second to the,
Yes, and so your question is about
What
the
does that look-
Dakota County Maternal Child Health. So remember, it's a coordination of several agencies within Dakota County, so it's their health professionals. So if they believe, based on this dashboard, there are some lags in developmental indicators, that's when it's a team approach. Is that what you're asking
So it would
for?
be, district people as well as the.
Yes, it could be.
Okay,
Yes, yes.
got it.
Mhm.
And then the last question is, I think it's more of a statement. Item 5.2. Let me go down to that. Just thinking it would be interesting to have a report back at some point when we have information to share back with the board on, progress and how we're doing.
So my first year as superintendent, I do believe, and we'll have to check, so Cindy checked that time, and Tom Umhofer, at that time, the Director of Community Services, they serve on another committee that meets regularly. And I believe they were here for questions. And so we now have Carolyn Cherry and also Emily, I'm going to forget her name, excuse me, who helps with the dashboard. So Carolyn Cherry, we could have them provide more information. So they're new to this also.
She's the coordinator, the early childhood
She's-
coordinator?
Yes, she's our point person for the birth to 8.
Anyone else with the discussion, question? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is to adopt the resolution in support of the Congressional Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, known as IDEA, Full Funding Act. Director Scott Hume will be presenting the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. So this is a resolution that was shared at the MSBA Delegate Assembly back in early December. The MSBA is hoping that many, if not most, school districts in the state would sign on to this resolution to show how much support there is across the state for this resolution, asking Congress to fund the IDEA at the levels that they said they would back in 1975 and have never come close to that amount. I believe it's currently at about 14%, and the legislation calls for up to 40%. So MSBA is asking school districts across the state to approve this resolution in support in order to demonstrate to our congressional leaders how much support there is in schools in Minnesota.
So is there a motion to approve this recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Director Alt,
Second.
Or-
second by Director Worm. Are there any questions or discussion? Director Alt.
Just a comment. I really appreciate you bringing this forward, Director Hume. The maintenance of effort and proof of that maintenance lives in our schools. And the fact that 191, along with other Minnesota school districts, must shuffle money around to support our most vulnerable students is a reality that we need Congress to address bipartisanly. While we do appreciate the additional funding that we've received as a result of the pandemic, the fact that this funding was made available to us also demonstrates the ability of Congress to be able to fully fund support for IDEA. And certainly this resolution, assuming it will pass, really is encouragement to Congress to more fully fund our schools and the needs of our students. So thank you very much.
Any other discussion? I 100% agree with Director Alt. So.
We know.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Yay. The next item on our agenda is to approve on a first reading basis new policy 534, school meal policy. Lisa Ryder, Executive Director of Business Services, will be presenting the recommendation. Welcome back, Lisa.
Thank you. The beginning part of this process was in July 1st, 2019, I believe, is when we needed to have, I'm sorry, it says 2017. It was when we had to have a procedure identified, written, and in play for us to be following the USDA requirements. So we have had that in play. And so this model policy came to us then from MSBA. And as we compared it to our procedures, that is where we modified some of the MSBA language to more align with our existing practice and our procedures that we have in play. So you will see that there are places where the model policy would have been modified. Oftentimes it's just to match up with what our practices are. In all cases, I think it's fair to say that our practices were following what the policy originally indicated. It was just the fine tuning that needed to take place. And then some conversations around some of the wording regarding whether we were holding ourselves more accountable with the language that we would bring forward to you versus what may have originally been the case. So if you'd like, I can go through the various areas, but I wonder if that's what you're looking for. Okay, so as you take a look at the very first part, we're essentially taking that which is typical as far as an explanation of the policy and the requirements for it. And under section 1, the purpose, you see that we have added into that the emphasis of the school district providing meals in a respectful manner and maintaining the dignity of students by prohibiting that any lunch shaming or otherwise ostracizing the student. And I'm pleased to say that that's not a part of our practice. As you look at section 2, we wanted to address our a la carte purchases as well. And so you see some modification there where it's not just only the meals, but also our a la carte. And incorporating that, there were various options made available to you through the MSBA model policy, and option 1 more closely aligned to our practices. Letter B is essentially just spelling out a few things there with the Minnesota State statutes. And under section C, here's where we're talking about the meals, but we're also wanting to make reference there to the fact that we believe it's in the best interest of our students that we offer that meal regardless. We don't have alternate meals. We give the same meal to all students. We did strike letter D, since we don't have that alternate meal. E, we don't take food away from students. Once the food is on a tray, then they are able to receive that meal. As you take a look at G, there are occurrences of a negative account balance, and when that is the case, it's the a la carte items that are controlled, but not the meals for a regular meal. So we do ask that funds be available for a la carte or any additional meal items which are considered a la carte. Under section 3, which is the lower negative account balances and notification, we just wanted to clarify parent/guardian versus families. And under section B, we called out exactly kind of what our practice is, the phone calls, text messages, emails. And so that clarifies a little bit more there what it is that people can expect. Additionally, under section C there, just that emphasis again regarding if there is a negative balance, we don't have those conversations with students, so we have the conversations with the adults. Under section 4, unpaid meal charges, under the letter C, we do use a collection agency. We have done this process once prior to COVID, and we had a list ready to go, but then when COVID hit, we held off, and we didn't pursue anything at that point in time. Since then, this past financial audit, during that June 30, 2021, Most of the account balances were written off. And moving forward, it's a question of just staying and maintaining this as best we can. The challenge for us seems to be when accounts go negative before an application is submitted and processed. As much as we can inform families at the time when they're enrolling, apply then we can improve the chance that there wouldn't be any negative balances incurred before an approval would be the case for an application, should they be eligible.
I apologize. Can you repeat that last, what you just said?
Yeah, we're working on things like trying to approach families at the time when they enroll into the district
Right.
of apply now, and that way then, if they're eligible under free or reduced meals, then it's far more likely they won't have incurred any negative balances. They would right away be approved. So we're trying to find ways to reach families before the negative balances can occur, particularly for those that are eligible for free or reduced.
Thank you.
Yep. And we did have a letter D where we changed made a must with regard to us not using volunteers when engaging in debt collection efforts. And we are not, we do not use the practice of holding back a student from activities or ceremonies or field trips or things of that nature should they have a negative balance either. So that's something that we called out and listed the numbers of our various items. We felt that was important to do so. Under the communication of policy, which is section 5, you'll find that under letter B, that on the website of the organization where that we post there the information with regard to the written notification, and our school district contracts with a third party, should we do so, then they will also make sure that they follow and we would ensure that these same practices are a part of their mix. We do not currently utilize a third party for serving of our meals. That is entirely in-house. And I believe we also have made reference to a few other policies. Policy 102, 103, and 413 are referenced as well.
Is there a motion to approve this policy on the first reading basis?
So moved.
Moved by Director Hume,
Second.
second by Director Connor. Is there any discussion?
I have one clarifying question. Under point 4, C and D, just want to clarify the intent. So it says, in some instances, the school district does use a collection agency to collect unpaid school meal debts. But then point D says the school district must not enlist the assistance of non-school district employees to engage in debt collection. Is the difference there an individual versus an organization that we would contract to collect the?
The intent is that it meant we aren't using like volunteers or others outside. If it's an organization that's their business, that is what we are doing.
Okay.
But if that feels contradictory,
Just felt a little fuzzy when it says we may not enlist the assistance of non-school district employees,
yeah,
was my,
I understand your
yeah.
point.
Yeah. Other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is to approve the casual rates of pay for 2021-2022 school year. Stacy Sylvine, Executive Director of Human Services, will be presenting the recommendation for this item and the next 5 items. Welcome, Stacy.
Woohoo! Good evening, Chair Chester, and congratulations. Dr. Battle, members of the board. Open up the folder here and we'll begin. I'm bringing to you a an update to our seasonal casual wage scale. Sometimes different things that happen during the school year that cause us to have to bring these rates back to you for adjustments. Many of these areas are updating our sub-wages. Again, sub-wages is one of those areas that we're having to monitor as we're trying to get folks to help backfill those positions that are vacant. The other area that we're looking at are areas specific to minimum wage, federal minimum wage, state minimum wage, not federal, I'm sorry, that is going up, that took effect on January 1st. And then finally, in relation to a special ed grant that was awarded to us, and we need to identify what those wages are going to be according to the grant and make that known. So with that, I am bringing the recommendation that the Board of Education approves the following rates of pay for the 2021-2022 school year.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved?
Moved by Director Alt,
Second.
second by Director Werb. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is to approve the revisions and readopt the unchanged language in the 2021-2023 collective bargaining agreement with the Burnsville Association of Educational Assistants.
Thank you. This is an agreement with our the Burnsville EAs. This one, every bargaining unit has its own flavor as far as the negotiations in which we have. Sometimes folks will focus on insurance. They may focus on salary. They may focus on longevity, whatever. This one here specifically was wanting to address COVID and shortage of employees and how can we get more employees with us. So we spent quite a bit of time. It was in just the one meeting that we went through this, but pretty straightforward. We added an MOU for referrals. We also added a MOU for 2 years for retention. So an EA that starts the year off with us, at the end of the year, if they're still with us, would get up to $1,500 based upon the number of hours that they worked per week. Okay? So because EAs are one of our high turnover areas, we hire somebody in the spring for the upcoming fall. We're lucky if we get that person to show up. And with the job market as it is, if folks need an incentive to, okay, I got benefits, I've got my hourly pay, you know what, it's only 2 more months, kind of stick it out till the end of the school year. So that's what we're hoping for. It is a 2-year MOU. We did not add that money onto the salary schedule permanently. So hopefully after 2 years, when we all look back in the mirror on this, that will sunset on its own and it won't increase our wages for the EAs. The other thing we did was we took language, monetary language that we had around training, and we put that actually into the salary schedule. Part of the reason was it was becoming very logistically difficult to do, especially over the last 2 years, to bring people together, to do the trainings, to allow them to qualify for the extra amount. We still are going to provide those trainings to our EAs, but we're just incorporating it straight into the salary schedule. Outside of that, we had a 2% increase year over year. We did increase our 403B match. Again, that is the biggest bang for the buck, both for the employee and the employer. And the 2-year increase cost was approximately $1 million for this group. With that, it's my recommendation that the Board of Education approve the revisions and readopt the unchanged language in the 2021-2023 collective bargaining agreement with the Burnsville Association of Educational Assistants.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Director Hume. Second by Director Werb. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. The next item is to approve the proposed revisions and readopt the unchanged language in the 2021-2023 master agreement with the Burnsville district-wide administrators.
Okay. The next two agreements, collective bargaining agreements that I'll bring to you, as I was talking about with the EAs, there was a focus on COVID and retention. The next two groups had part of their focus was around the holiday language in which we were using, and wanted to come up with different ways in which we would provide more flexibility with our holiday language. Now, each contract has its own history on how it's developed, so you kind of have to navigate the language that you currently have in place to work with that. And you'll see DWA and the Information Technology Specialist had two different ways of resolving those issues. So we modified our holiday language to provide flexibility for the DWA, along with the religious absence request, aligning that request with other contracts, modified attendance incentive to a sick leave credit, shortened and condensed the longevity timeframe, and had steps for both years. Again, we were looking at 2% on the salary schedule both years, and increased the 403 max, increased the match to the 403B to $4,000. The 2-year increase cost is just a little over $110,000 for salary and benefits for these folks. It's my recommendation that the Board of Education approve the proposed revisions and readopt the unchanged language in the 2021-2023 master agreement with the Burnsville district-wide administrators.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Director Hume,
Second?
second by Director Alt. Is there any discussion?
Just wanted to add a comment that I do, I always like when they simplify things, so a lot of all the wordiness that's taken out, I really appreciate that. And it's still enough, it's very direct,
Thank you.
enough information that it's direct to the point. That's all.
Thank you.
Other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Next is to approve the revisions and readopt the unchanged language in the 2021-2023 master agreement with the Information Technology Specialists.
Okay. Again, as I alluded to previously, conversation around our holiday time and the language on how to get there. Language on closing facilities was discussed and developed. And again, just a reminder, we're using that term more as far as closing facilities than snow days or canceling school, because that's just not going to occur as often. So it's when we actually close the facility that some of this language may kick in. We did provide steps both years with a 2% increase on each step, plus adjustments to the 403B. The 2-year increase cost for this unit was $63,000. With that, it is my recommendation that the Board of Education approve the revisions and readopt the unchanged language in the 2021-2023 master agreement with the Information Technology Specialist.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Director Werb,
Second.
second by Director Hume. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously.
Okay.
Next is to approve the proposed revisions and readopt the unchanged language in the 2021-2023 terms and conditions of employment for the community education employees of Independent District, School District 191.
The next two items that we're bringing before you tonight, these are no longer collective bargaining agreements. We are not working with a unit, a negotiation unit. These are what we start to call terms and conditions of employment, or otherwise known as employment policies, okay? So we identify the areas, try to make sure that these folks are aligned with our other units, that they follow our pay equity reports that are due every 3 years, and then treat them fairly and respectfully as their salary packages that we offer. With our community ed folks, it's a really straightforward year. We're just doing 2% on the schedule both years, and we're looking at an increased cost of about $220,000 over 2 years. It is my recommendation that the Board of Education approve the proposed revisions and readopt the unchanged language in the 2021-2023 terms and conditions of employment for the community education employees of Independent School District 191.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Director Hume,
Second?
second by Director Word. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. The next item is to approve the proposed revisions and readopt the unchanged language in the 2021-2023 terms of conditions of employment for the confidential employees of ISD 191.
Again, bringing to you another terms and conditions of employment. This one also is putting 2% on the schedules on both years. We are making a market adjustment on our Tier 1, which is our payroll supervisor position in comparison to other payroll supervisors in that region. Just want to try to make sure that we continue to be competitive, because the last thing we want to lose is our payroll person as employees. So we're making adjustments for that. We did condense longevity time frame and increase the amount with that. We made an increase to the 403B, and the 2-year increase cost is just $41,000. With that, it is my recommendation that the Board of Education approve the proposed revisions and readopt the unchanged language in the 2021-2023 terms and conditions of employment for the confidential employees of Independent School District 191.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Director Connor,
Second?
second by Director Alt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you very much.
The last item on the agenda is to approve on a first reading basis changes to policy 906, community notification of predatory offenders. Dr. Teresa Battle, Superintendent, is presenting.
Thank you, Chair Chester and members of the board. Tonight's policy has been amended and based on review by the Policy Review Committee. If you look at the community notification of predatory offenders, under Section 4 procedures, number 4 and number 6 have both been stricken due to updates from the Minnesota Department of Corrections. They are no longer applicable in the state of Minnesota. And based on those 2 items being removed, there was renumbering. So my recommendation is that the Board of Education approves on a first reading basis changes to policy 906, community notification of predatory offenders. And this policy was reviewed by the Policy Review Committee on November 15, 2021.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Director Connor,
Second.
second by Director Hume. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Do I have a motion to adjourn to a board workshop for board planning?
So
This
moved.
concludes our meeting. Moved by Director Alt.
Second.
Okay, second by Director Hume. So this meeting is now adjourned. We'll begin a workshop. Let's give us a 10-minute break. That concludes our meeting. Yes.
Regular and special board meetings, of course, kind of stayed the same. But the language that had been considered and just kind of left there were the blue addition and a question around the red.
Right.
Yes, and so it's really adding the committees with the exception of negotiations.
Correct.
Right, which we were doing during the early days of COVID,
Right.
when all
Yeah.
of our meetings were on
On
Zoom.
Zoom.
Those were all being live streamed, all the committee meetings.
Right.
Yep.
That's why I was confused with the color coding.
Yeah.
because We had done that for quite a while, for almost
Wait,
a year.
weren't we just there?
Yes. So we'll kind of like open it up for discussion and review of, do we want to continue with how it's written, or do we want to make any edits or changes? Knowing that goodness knows, maybe we could go back to having it on a Zoom, but
Well, and I think it might be fair also to have Dr. Battle's thoughts, like kind of
yeah.
in terms of, why we just kind of left it. There were some concerns that you had, and
Oh, cost and logistics.
the cost and logistics,
The
and I think maybe
logistics.
sharing out maybe.
Yeah, so the logistics, as you see, the communication teams, it's required for them to do the full audio and visual. And so to add 2 more meetings a month, their logistics with that too. And then setting up on the floor. If you remember previously when we were not at the dais
Right.
Right.
during COVID, so the setup for that. That's that.
But if we're at the dais, then there's no setup.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was that last?
Well, I was adding that
If
because
the
I thought I
committees are
heard
meeting here.
Chair Chester talk about if we go back to Zoom. Maybe I misunderstood
Oh,
your
no,
last
I was just
comment.
saying, we just want to know.
Oh, okay.
COVID.
COVID, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
COVID could send
Okay.
us to Zoom.
Thank you. Okay, that's what I was.
So if
So
we were
it's-
at the dais for the committee meetings for legislative and policy, that would be easier logistically.
Sitting at the dais?
Sitting at the
Oh, yeah,
dais,
because
yeah.
we have all the setup here.
Cameras are already set.
Yes.
Yep.
and Sounds, yeah, I would think it would be. We would still need someone to help with the actual technology piece, obviously. but
Yes.
We wouldn't have to spend all that time. I assume some amount of time setting up in advance when we had the cameras, when we were just sitting over there for a while before we came back.
So just to clarify, are we still recording them?
We've not been recording committee meetings.
No, they fall under open meeting laws, that's why the doors are open.
Right.
But they're not, like right now, we're still on air because it's a workshop, so it's not like live streamed or recorded.
And I know one of the reasons that I was the one that had suggested some of the language changes, and part of the thinking behind it was having paid attention to the viewers that we had when we were virtual during COVID, that the committee meetings were pretty consistently at like 25 to 30 people watching them. So people were actually, either, whether it was watching them live or maybe watching them recorded, I don't know which, but it was just kind of interesting to see that people were interested in what was going on in the committee meetings.
Right.
And I thought that might be, it might be helpful if we did open things up a little bit for people to be able to see some of the other work that we do beyond the regular board meetings.
So just to clarify, are we talking about starting to record those again?
We're trying to see, because it's been drafted in here, if we wanted to follow through, but understanding the logistical challenges, if we needed to be out there for spacing.
Okay.
Can we, for logistics sake and some cost implications,
Yeah.
Sorry.
for cost implications, can we easily do recordings And the solution was to have the committee meetings sitting at this
Okay,
table.
I'm sorry, I just must have missed the whole, that we weren't doing, like, this was new. Sorry.
It's somewhat new, I would say.
It's new for us.
Yeah, yeah, well, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's,
When
Well,
you
that's
first
why I
joined the
was
board,
trying
we're
to-
still doing everything
I'm
by
like you,
Zoom.
I got bits and pieces, though, I kind of made a
Yeah,
whole.
well,
so-
in previous to Zoomed committee meetings, we were meeting in the conference room in the admin location office, and that was not televised. And so,
okay,
Abigail was proposing, since we were getting viewership during committee meetings via Zoom, that should we be more
Continue.
open and accessible by continuing.
Rather than simply meeting in the Egan room, I don't know where the legislative committee.
We met here.
Met in here this week.
Okay, you
Yeah.
did.
It
Okay,
depends on which room's being used.
got it, got it.
Right. Whatever room is open is the one we usually go to.
So that kind of gives a little background.
yes,
Yes.
now it makes sense.
So previously, we did not do this.
All right,
But
Prior to
again, like
COVID, we did not.
COVID's producing new, different opportunities that
Yes.
we didn't think of before. So I think it behooves us to explore and have the dialogue and then see how we want to proceed post-COVID.
so is there some disadvantage to having all the committee meetings here?
I think the only thing we were wondering is if there was a cost
Okay,
implication, knowing with additional staff, or if there was additional setup or anything that would render more work.
So it would be
than all-
additional.
Either a financial cost or a human cost of having people needing to stay late because the meetings don't start until 5. So, just something we need to consider, I think.
Yeah. But if it turns out to be minimal, I think
Right.
it's nice to have that level of transparency, knowing it's just at this table. I think the only implication would be if we had not enough seats. If the kids-
Right.
True, true.
You know, so
That
like.
would be-
But there could
like
be
the
a
legislature-
house?
presenter, right? There
Yeah.
could be.
But this is all
So like the
saying,
presenter would have to be there, like our meeting where we had to
And
guess.
in the event, I mean, I'll just use an example. If we had a legislative committee meeting and all of our legislators came, then we would just have to figure out for that one meeting, a different way to set up so that we could still we'd probably especially want to live stream if we ever had that kind of a situation.
Yeah, we had them all attend at once, yeah.
Yeah, completely.
Because that many people would not fit around this table.
and that's saying we don't go back to Zoom meetings. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Assuming.
yeah. I
Saying-
would- I
saying
would
we
think
don't
a
do that, yeah.
Significant surge or some would.
Yeah, yeah.
That'd be more like state statute of lockdown kind of thing.
That was part of why we were able to do it at the time because of the governor's executive orders.
And that would,
No
if we
longer
did
apply.
actually end up back there, that would just supersede anything that we have in
Right,
right.
policy or procedure, yeah. Well, I personally am for it. I think it's worth the, the additional whatever maybe it would be interesting, in spirit, I like the idea of being more transparent and open and giving people the opportunity to tune in during the meeting or following the meeting and be able to watch a recording. But Dr. Battle, I would want to know, if it's becoming an exorbitant cost, that certainly is something that we would want to know.
Yeah, so I think if we could get an estimate, knowing that the ideal would be that we'd be at this table, no reconfiguring, what would the approximate cost be? Like staffing and such.
Well, and also, would it make a difference if we stacked our meetings? I don't know. Like, if we had, we have just two committee meetings, legislative and policy.
Have them on the
Sure.
same night, you mean?
Have them on the same night and just take the hit the one night. I don't know if that makes a difference.
Yeah, I
And
think-
A
there's-
half hour in between or something to set up?
Yeah, we'll need to find out from Jamie what it takes to set up, but I think too, because we have the board listening session prior to, we want to make sure, like, scheduling that whoever's committee meeting.
I thought she
is.
was thinking legislative committee and policy committee would meet on the same night.
That's what I was
Oh,
meaning.
I thought you meant
No.
like prior to
Oh,
a
gosh,
school
that
board
would be
meeting, so
too
let's
much.
maximize.
Those two meetings would happen, those two meetings would happen back to back on the same night.
Okay.
If it's easier, if it's easier to have them both on the same night, whatever night that is,
Yeah.
Right.
and it saves some additional setup costs, would we be willing to try to make that work as a
So like
as a
5 to
board?
6, 6 to 7 kind of deal.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yep.
I was just looking for the exact numbers for the meetings that you referenced, so.
How many
Total
employees do you
views.
think it would take? More than two? I mean, one for setup, one to do the,
Two
what do you call
before,
that stuff? The
two
technical stuff.
together with both,
So it'd be two employees.
so I might not
Minimum.
want to have
That's what I
two
was
people here for
thinking.
committee meetings when usually
Besides
an
us.
average.
Right.
Get two people that come in person.
Hmm.
So,
Besides the other people
Two.
in the policy meetings too, so.
Great. Is there any other thoughts or recommendations to edit or change this document? No, is this something then that we would bring back for board action to?
This would be probably a report
A re-
that we would receive and just review it, comments, questions, and then that would become our deal.
Okay, so like the informational portion
Yeah,
of the meeting.
exactly.
Okay,
So I do have one other.
yeah.
I'm noticing it says live access online at ISD191.org and on BCTV. All of the live streams that I've seen have been on YouTube, so we should probably also
Oh,
add.
add YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good edit. I keep forgetting the YouTube bit, because I remember
And
when,
they're also posted online on YouTube, so that may have changed since this was initially created, but.
And question on the camera, does it make a difference multiple cameras or single camera in terms of logistics?
I think it does. I'd have to provide
Under
that
legislative
information to
committee
you.
and policy, like,
Yes, it does.
if it's
Cameras or
easier,
single
like,
camera.
what really matters is not necessarily that people can see us, but they can hear and watch,
Yeah.
That's true.
right?
That's
So
true,
if,
yeah.
if a single camera can do it and it saves us logistically,
I seem to remember that coming up when we were talking about moving back to in-person and being told at the time
Yeah,
single
it does
camera
make
was
a
definitely
difference.
easier.
Yeah,
yeah.
it
So I think
does.
that was when we were going to be over there, we're going to have the one camera
Yeah,
kind of
that-
shining.
pointing, yep.
Right,
But
right.
like, if it's that one, that should be plenty, right?
I would
Yeah.
think,
I think-
We don't need to have people like focusing in on us,
zooming in on the speaker and.
not for committee meetings. So then we probably want to delete multiple cameras from that red.
Well, is it a single camera for workshops and work sessions? Like, would we want multiple cameras? Because maybe it's either or.
Either
Yeah, maybe
or.
say multiple or single
Yep.
camera.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Teresa, you and your staff can,
Okay, using multiple
Good to have
or
flexibility.
Yeah.
single
Again, if we have
camera.
all the legislators at a meeting, maybe would want multiple cameras.
So it says presentations are not shared as part of live stream. So when people are watching it, they can't see the presentation that we're seeing?
they would be able to access that document in Board Book through the website.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be on, like,
It wouldn't be
screen.
recorded, it wouldn't be part of the recording.
Okay.
feel like maybe there's questions I can answer.
Yes.
Yeah, that
I
would be great,
found
thank
your
you.
email with the number of viewers, so like the highest time, the height was 42 and they watched for 8 minutes. So, yeah.
Yeah,
but-
to give you an idea, tonight, we never had more than 4 people watching the live stream. No offense, you guys are
Yeah.
not as popular as we'd like, maybe.
No, people have other things.
There's not any hot
We're
topics.
clearing our audiences because this is a really big item to discuss.
Right, yeah, obviously it depends. In terms of the question about the presentations at board meetings on this laptop are presented and do go out as part of the live stream or onto Channel 18. If it was part of a committee meeting, the idea would be that it would be stripped down and limited, very limited production. So those
Okay.
presentations would be available on Board Book, as you were saying, but not live streamed.
Yeah.
Okay,
Wouldn't
so
bother with switching.
presentations shared as part of okay, for regular board meetings, but not on the committee meetings. Okay,
Right. Yeah.
that makes sense.
Well, and like with this workshop, these documents aren't up
Correct.
for people to see.
Yep.
Yeah.
Available
Okay.
online,
But they can,
not
they can, they
presented.
In the
can.
They
board.
can access. it.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. There's a question about the cost.
Yeah, it's, Tim is the producer, as part of the tech staff, and he, as part of the contract or stipend, there's a certain number of meetings that are covered every year, and anything above and beyond that, we pay per meeting for his work. With the very stripped down version of production, the goal would be that he wouldn't have to be here because we're not, again, switching between cameras. We don't really need it produced, and he wouldn't have to ever go over the number of meetings. It might be that he can be here, or we have a meeting available, he can be here if we feel like we need it. But otherwise, it might be somebody in my staff or myself who could run those meetings, and we could do it with just one person. But again, that's why you wouldn't get the camera angles and.
Right.
Okay,
That's helpful, thank you.
yeah,
Yeah, that's really
Thank you.
helpful. So do I feel like we're in a consensus that we want to pursue the committees at this table, and knowing that the cost may be likely minimal, with minimal production?
so now with that helpful information, yeah.
So then we
And
can.
work sessions.
Huh?
And work sessions.
And
or-
work sessions.
Yep.
Yep. So,
I
that,
like the idea that Abigail said too about the back-to-back meetings, just get it all done in one night, too.
yeah, we can definitely explore that once the committee, when we get to the, one of our items about committee. We can have that discussion. Or it could be discussed with the newly formed committees.
True.
Well, and it may also depend on the staff that go to both of those meetings.
Right.
And whether or not it's too much
Yep.
to ask for them to go to both on the
Yep.
same night.
Both of them.
Which, Teresa, you would need to let us know.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, are some people on two meetings?
Well, depends. So like if there's communications related policies, then Aaron would be there, and Aaron often is part of the legislative
Leave
committee.
committee.
Oh, I see.
And then for policy, it's a combination of Teresa and Stacy, Lisa, sometimes.
yeah.
and-
Lisa
and
does
Cindy.
attend
Yeah.
legislative
Lisa
as
you was
well.
often at the legislative committee also, yeah.
Yep.
And they might prefer to just do them both in the same night,
Get it over.
but just,
Again, it would also be related to what the committee decides as timing
Absolutely.
too. So
Right,
like
right.
if a committee was willing to meet at 4 versus 5 and
Right.
yep,
or not go later than 6, maybe.
Or make sure that we stick to, we have an hour,
Yeah,
but we'd go 45 minutes for the committee meeting and 15 minutes in between or something
To
like,
transition.
the legislative committee should go first. Usually done early.
yeah. We can do
Policy,
that.
policy always ends up going to the,
Right on the button.
like, I think we ended early last time.
We're usually right around that hour.
Yeah.
Usually,
Yeah.
I think.
So we'll have once the committees have been assigned, I think it's worth the discussion then as to like, is it the third Wednesday of the month, the second Tuesday, or however, Monday or whatever. Then make that, kind of figure out the timing and stuff. So whether it can land all on one day or not. So cool, then with that, should we pause to get that information, or should we move this onto an informational portion of our board meeting? Because it can be on an agenda here soon.
I think we can figure out the timing of it separately.
Okay, so let's add this to an informational session for either the next board meeting or the first one in
February
February.
10th?
Well, actually, let's make it the
10th,
January
20,
27th, so
27th
it
for
can be
February 10th.
implemented in February.
Yeah, good thought.
Good idea.
Alrighty.
I can actually think
thinking,
on my
Madam
feet
Chair.
sometimes.
It made
At
sense.
8:40.
You're doing great.
Okay, and then so next is a review of our board goals. So we set these earlier at the beginning of our fiscal year, and so I thought it'd be good to check in to see where we're progressing where we're, and also knowing that we're going to be coming up with our own, working on a self-eval as well, so it's probably a good time to review, and especially in terms of us being ambassadors, are we doing what we set up to be doing?
You said self-evals?
Yeah, so we're gonna have MSBA come, this is what the workshop that we're going to have scheduled
Oh, that one. Yeah.
here, because it's always good for every board to kind of review itself in terms of its effectiveness and challenges and such, so. So, our first goal was ISD 191 board members as ambassadors, and that we will be supporting messaging on key district issues by answering questions from community members, redirecting them to the chair or to the staff, presenting information and attending promotional events in consultation with the communications office, understanding and reinforcing district brand, amplifying district messages on our own social media, visit schools as assigned, and share experiences at board meetings. And so we wanted to track the number of school visits board members were able to make, and if board members have social media, figuring out, how we want to report us leveraging our messages and tracking the number of community events that board members attend. And it's hard to do that in lieu of COVID. So I think we were thinking things are going to be awesome.
Certainly, we thought they'd be better than they are right
Because
now.
I think this was planned pre-Delta and pre-Omicron, so.
Right, it was.
I-
Post-vaccines, but pre-Delta and Omicron.
Yes.
That short window.
And I know I have not visited, I visited my kids' schools, but I haven't visited any
Same.
school I was assigned to. And I don't know how many of, I don't think we've had very many like larger community events, so no, I have not
Same
No,
reason.
we haven't.
Yeah.
been in attendance either. But as like.
Did do it's not called National Night Out anymore, but Night to Unite.
Night to Unite.
Last, whenever that was, August.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We did a national night out.
Yeah.
yeah,
They don't call it that anymore. I was
Night to
confused. It's
Unite.
the
Yep.
Night to Unite.
yeah.
Well, and I think that's where, like, the tracking of it, and maybe this was happening, but, when we do go out and do those things, reporting back, like, that's like the individual board report, that's where we can share back, okay, these are the 3 things that I was able to do in the last month.
Right.
Yeah.
And same, I probably visited my school maybe twice, but, I think
More times
whatever.
than I did.
Whatever we did, that was, it was, we were doing the best that we could, and we all have day jobs, and,
And sometimes they're distance learning.
Yep.
But
But I wonder, the only thing that I noticed is like on promotional events in consultation with the communications office, and goodness knows they have enough that they're dealing with. They don't need to manage our schedules, but there are events that I hear about after the fact. And that I know I would love to be able to attend. So I don't know, Teresa, how we can help with board visibility to that, because I know I do go into the schools and try to see, but there are some that are like internal events that you're, only families maybe are invited to or something like that, so just something to think
Well,
about.
I remember like and I don't even know if they're still doing this, but my first year, way before, a year before, not that far before, a year before COVID, when even board members were invited to things like, I think it was Eagle Ridge had a halfway to graduation
Yep.
celebration for their 6th graders, I think it was, whatever grade it is, where you're halfway to high school graduation. And a couple of the board, I know Abigail and I went to that. And-
The I Love to Read month where we're invited.
Or I love to read month where we would
schools.
go in and read in the classrooms, right, so.
And a
And
lot
some
of,
of those
a lot
things.
of that happens from the school, like we would be
Yeah.
invited from the school, so, I know that would be on the principal and the staff, but,
Well, maybe that's an argument in favor of trying for us to do more to reach out if we continue with the school assignments.
yeah.
And then when those events are happening, hopefully the principal would perhaps invite us. Because maybe I don't go just to take a tour of my assigned
Right.
school, but maybe they would invite me to an event like that might be happening.
And if I think that would be a case where if we find out, like someone finds out about, halfway to graduation ceremony, we would be allowed to send out an email to everybody saying, hey, by the way, just forward it and say
Right.
FYI.
Yeah, or inform Jamie to add in to
Right.
the.
So let's say,
Yeah.
probably
Right,
talk
right,
to
that
Jamie
too,
first, yeah.
The update of things that board
Yep.
members are invited to attend, or,
Yeah.
yeah, that section of her updates.
Yeah, and I know I like posts on social media. I don't know if, I don't necessarily always comment, but I do know that I like or share, especially when there's like when they're promoting registration or our lovely new print material.
Active on my school board Twitter account. That's
Yeah.
where I do most of my social media-ing related to school board.
Yeah.
I try to do one thing each week, whether it's liking or retweeting something, or maybe sharing a post on Facebook, but at least one thing each week if I'm doing something to promote the district.
I'm not as intentional as that, but that's probably what it averages out to.
Yeah, because you're going through and you see.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that looks good. Retweet.
I keep saying I'm gonna make an account so that I can have all you guys on it. It's like more of a business account instead of just my family stuff. But I just haven't really took the time to do that, and it keeps going back on the back burner.
It's not for everybody.
Well, I mean, I do keep up with my family a lot, but I would like to try to get a business one, so. Because my outside things I do is, well, I was listening to the new board members' meetings all the time, which were very informative, but then they got to be so depressing. Because I couldn't relate to a lot of the things that they were going through either, and it just kind of turned into
Was this MSBA
a B session.
webinars for new board members? or-
Or AMSD.
It was, let me see, was it MSB or AMSB? It was AMSB, I believe. Yes, AMSB. And then the other one was the REES series, which is the Racial Equity in Education series. But that one you had to pay for, but it was so worth it. I think it was, I don't know, it was either 25 or 50 bucks or whatever for the whole year. And it was so good. Yeah, it was, I learned so much from that. And it was just awesome. Well spent. I don't know if I want to do it again this year, but that was really
If they
good.
offer that, would you share that
I was
with?
gonna say, could you send me the link?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do it, if you hear about them doing it again? I
Oh,
may-
yeah,
may
of course,
wanna
they do
sign
it
up.
every year. Yeah, they're
Okay.
trying to get me to do it again this year, but it's like, well, I learned so much, I just need to be able to implement it. And with COVID, we really can't. A little, we're tied a little bit. But, tied down to being able to do these social things that they suggest, but it is very informational and it's very educational. So, but yeah, it's, really good. I should have every month, kind of brought some little report back, but I didn't think about that, because that is like an outside reporting thing I could have done that does tie into school board and what we're trying to accomplish. The speakers were excellent, and then the main thing is we would break off into groups, and so you'd learn so much from other people and their walks of life, and that's the thing. When you have those group discussions with people that you don't know and get to meet, absolutely, it's just so worthy. Besides just the speakers themselves.
Yeah. Knowing that we're kind of mid-year and we are done with this plan at the end of this year, are there anything related to this goal that we may modify? I mean, we know that we want Jamie, if we find out of something, we're going to inform Jamie, so Jamie can put it in the weekly update, so that, we can maybe learn more about opportunities for us to attend events. You're going to share.
I'll give Jamie that, that link that they're always sending me about trying to get in it again this year, because, you guys it's so informative. You learn so much about yourself too,
Yeah.
so.
And then, I'll try to make a better effort to go to the school I'm assigned to.
Well, I did go to my one school, but one time, but yeah, I'm just not really, I was real hesitant about going there even, and then now they're shut down.
My new mantra, I was just telling Brian Gersich as he was leaving, is I no longer believe COVID is going to end or go away.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm trying to force myself to adapt, and what is the world going to be like? And that's part of why I'm still going to MSBA conference this week, even though part of me is like, what am I doing? But I'm vaccinated, boosted, I'm wearing a mask.
Yeah.
At some point, you have to start doing these things again, because we can't live the rest of our life like COVID is going to go away if we all wear a mask and get vaccinated, because it's not.
Well, I came up with a phrase, and someone said it should be a book. It's called Coexisting with COVID.
That's what we need to do. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good,
Exactly.
it's a
Coexist with
Coexist with
COVID.
COVID. So I think but my point is, part of coexisting with COVID, I think, is getting to the point where I feel comfortable reaching out to these very overwhelmed and super busy principals and saying, hi, can we set up a time to talk for 15 minutes, which is not even so much COVID related, why I haven't done it last year, but because it's because I know how busy they are
Oh, yeah.
because of COVID.
Yeah.
So it's not even that, if I go to the school, I might get COVID. It's not that. It's,
Right.
I know how busy they are. And so I've been reluctant to reach out to them and add one more thing to their plates.
Well, I felt kind of silly going there with gloves and a shield and a mask, but I still did because I was just afraid. I didn't want to accidentally touch anything. I knew I was going to sanitize my hands and everything, but I don't know, I guess was really afraid. I don't know, I just felt like germs were all around me.
I felt like that before COVID, so.
Did you?
I mean, I'm a little kid.
But it was very clean
Okay.
just by sight, but you can't see germs either.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, when I went to my school, it was, hard because there's like no students, because they were all, I think when we were doing like hybrid or something, and
Okay.
they had cohorts and all that, and it was like basically the school was virtually empty. I don't know, it was just weird.
And these kids weren't socially distanced or anything, and I'm just like,
Right.
Our second goal is to work on our cultural proficiency in alignment with the district's work in being a culturally proficient school system. And so we will work to understand our individual assumptions and biases, making a commitment to value and manage cultural uniqueness and adapt education to meet the needs of each student. And measurements of our progress is that board members will work with the YMCA and in regards to the results of our IDI, maybe as a cumulative group, but then also our own individual IDI, and enrich our cultural understanding and development by participating in the equity lab, which we did. And then each board member will create an individual development plan. It's like once it's created, though, are people working through your plans? And then maybe a future goal would be for us to adopt plans each year, because this is always it's a lifelong journey, so it's not like you're done.
Forever,
I
right.
was going to say if we need to remove these and replace them with,
Updates.
yeah.
Yes.
But I think as long as we continue to work through our individual plans, knowing that the first two have been completed, I think it's just that progress. Or if you find that you have followed through on your plan, what is an extension of that plan for the remainder of the year? And then how would we want to report back to one another so that we have a dialogue? So maybe we'd add a bullet, or just have the intent to have maybe a workshop to just share and talk about the plans that we
I
have.
was thinking something similar, because I was thinking of it of like, how are we evaluating the results? Because yes,
Yeah.
we went to the equity lab, we did the IDI with the YMCA people, but has that changed behavior? Like, what's been the actual impact on our work that we're doing, and how can we evaluate that?
Yeah.
So, because you're right, because then we can build on what we accomplished,
Right.
other than check off that we did this event, so that as we're moving forward into the future, what do we still have to work on?
Yeah, well, and thinking back to the Equity Lab experience, we did, and when they came back for the final session, we were presented with kind of where we want to go and goals. So that should be kind of the foundation of
Right.
what we plan for.
So probably, this would probably be a retreat conversation before June.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So if we could,
Because the goals are July 1 through June 30.
yep, it runs the fiscal
Approximately.
year. Yeah.
And then that would give us a chance to, form them in retreat and then
Yep.
bring it forward and as a report,
Yeah,
blah, blah.
and then adopt them as our goals. Yep.
Well, we
Awesome.
did mention one time too about being more visible in the community, but then of course COVID kind of stopped that too. I think that was in the spring of last year, before summer, and we were talking about some events maybe that we could do, because we realize that the community likes to see the school board members, they get excited about it, and they, but then, like I said, COVID kind of
Right.
just kept us.
I got really positive, I think we all did, got very positive feedback from that night to Unite, but that's one night out of 365. I know there are other things like that that we could be doing
Well,
to
even in the
increase our
parade.
visibility. On the parade also,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, that was,
That's always a lot of fun.
they were so, excited.
People are just excited to be outside and around people.
Yeah, no,
You do. Or it's more like candy coloring books.
They love adults.
I know my kids always like parades because they can usually come back with a lot of candy that, like, almost as much as you get on Halloween. Or at least they used to. I don't know if it goes on anymore.
Just one more thing, would anybody be interested in any, on a report from another, in a school district, or not just a school period, from another country, just to see how they're dealing with COVID and stuff, or not necessarily? We're more concerned just about our district, probably our community. I was just wondering, because that's something else I sponsor, help sponsor with a school in Congo, and there's a, and we each have a student and stuff, and how our money is helping them. I mean, the difference between this little girl, her smiles and her clothing now, she has a uniform for school, which she didn't have before. They do recordings, but she doesn't speak English, but they interpret, and it's exciting, but, I mean, I don't know, that's, like I said, that's,
Well, I do know, sitting on Intermediate 917's board, Superintendent Dr. Favor would like to attend. He wants to attend every one of the member districts' board meetings to do an informational presentation about 917. And so I'm trying to work with Jamie to present, and you to find dates that might work
Yeah.
for Dr. Favor to attend. So we would hear from 917, because we're one of several member districts, and so we could hear something that, from another intermediate district in terms of how they're
something
handling.
closer by, yeah.
Well, and I remember, like, when I was first on the board, the superintendent of 917 would present the LTFM report, the
Oh,
LTFM recommendation to the board.
okay.
So when John Christensen, I think it was 2 years in a row, his last 2 years when he was there, he was the one that presented that report. So, yeah.
Yes, and.
This would be different, though, because we need to have a bigger,
Well, and
Right.
Superintendent favors a new superintendent
Yes.
too to 917, so I
Right.
think it's a good welcome
yeah.
for,
It'd be great
for
to have
him
him
to
come.
meet everybody, all the rest of 191 outside of myself, so.
Is there any, like, I don't know what the word would be used, guideline or policy or on school board members attending PTO meetings?
It's recommended that if you attend a PTO meeting, generally, it's as a parent.
Okay, not as a board member?
Of your school.
Of your own child's school, it gets kind of sticky
Okay,
to attend a PTO meeting as a board member.
okay. I'm just thinking about, like, because PTO meetings kind of give you an insight as to what each school is experiencing. Like, for example, and I haven't been able to attend mine just because they coincide with school board meetings, but they were bringing up something that I felt was very pertinent, was how to talk to your child about race. And, I was like, that's a really poignant thing to be talking about right now, and I have great admiration for them to do that at their PTO meeting. So I'm just, wondering, what other PTOs are doing, and just wondering how to get PTOs to talk to each other and just have some more uniform and collaboration within the district. And, you know, we're not so different than like corporations where everything is siloed.
Yeah.
And just wanting to make sure, you know, especially with, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion, like having people share their ideas, especially, you know, because PTOs are so separate. And how can that be accomplished?
So there was a time when there was an effort, gosh, it must have been in 14, a district-wide PTO that that had representatives from each school's PTO, understanding, of course, that elementaries are the only ones that have.
Yes, yep.
The secondary schools
No.
are not represented. Which, you know, that's you know, do you want them included? Is it better to have a separate group? But anyway, there was this effort to have a district-wide PTO. They had a couple of meetings. It's very difficult to have it. From that experience and then from other conversations I've had with other people, it's a great idea and it's very valuable for the districts that can make it work. But to add yet another meeting for those parents, they have to be really committed to it and understand the benefit, because there are lots of benefits to getting them more connected.
Right, and well, maybe it's not necessarily a meeting, but it's maybe like sharing information. Because, yeah, I can see where it would be kind of hurting cats.
And it's not for us. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, you know, if they want to
No.
do that, they either, you know, they work with their principals
Yeah.
or, you know, something.
And I was just thinking more of like, just gathering information to see what, you know, is, you know, kind of hot topics, or just kind of a pulse on the, you know, what's going on in the district that we maybe don't hear about because, you know.
On our website for each school, does a PTO have a little section on the school's website that maybe highlights their meeting or anything? I don't know. That's why I'm
They
just
might.
throwing it out there.
They
Some do,
might.
some don't. I think it's, you know,
Oh.
up to each PTO who's going to manage that, because
Sure.
some are bigger than others. I
Right,
know
that's what
that
I was,
from experience.
that's kind of what I was remembering, is some of the PTOs are very, very active and have a very strong
Yes.
group. Other schools, it's much less involvement.
And
So
it's more
there's always been
fluid,
some
like
disparities.
yeah, there's one, like, my kid's school, the last time I was aware, it's very fluid, and they don't even call it a PTO, they just bring the parents together around a project.
Whereas my kid's elementary school, Gideon Pond, has one of the stronger ones in the district, and it's still very active.
Miss Shannon.
Got that whole parking thing this year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
That was from the
right,
PTO
right.
when Gideon
I
Pond
mean, and I
started
think
that.
Monson's pretty strong
Yeah.
too.
So there's a lot of variations there, definitely.
Does 917 have another city besides Apple Valley?
We have, there, Bloomington, Bloomington,
Randolph.
Randolph.
Goes all the way up to
Hastings.
Randolph.
It's largely Dakota County,
Oh.
schools. So like we have Hastings,
Bloomington isn't Dakota
Lakeville.
County.
No, but so intermediate districts provide services that independent school districts, don't do on their own. So it's usually the level 4 higher level setting, special ed, itinerant services, like deaf and hard and hearing.
Oh.
And sometimes it depends, sometimes adult basic ed, depending, each intermediate district is different. And they cover an area. So like, we have 917, but then you have 287, which is like Hennepin County, Ymca over there, and then 288, which is the Southwest Metro that starts in Shakopee and goes south down to Waseca. And so several districts. So that's why we have, because we utilize the services of 917, we're a member district, so we pay to be a member of 917 to utilize the services that they provide. along with other school districts. So like we have 197, 196 is, it's all on its own. They had left 917. But we have like 197, South St. Paul, 197 is West St. Paul, Mendota, South St. Paul, Bloomington, yeah, Randolph is really tiny, Hastings, Lakeville, Farmington,
South St. Paul, West St. Paul,
I'm missing one.
Inver Grove Heights, Randolph. I'm going where we sit at.
Yeah, I'm trying to count the,
We sit in the
board
same spot.
members.
Leslie, what about Richfield? Is that,
No.
No.
that's right next to, okay.
Nope, Bloomington, yeah, Bloomington, I think.
You
had
had
left.
Bloomington. I think you named them all. Inver Grove
Yeah, I think
Heights,
so.
Inver Grove Heights.
And I know like Southwest Metro has like 14 member districts, and 287 has a lot of member districts too. And then is there 916 too? No, there's another 9. And so they're larger, serving a larger
Okay, thank you.
districts.
The district of the Apple Valley High School is 196.
Yeah,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
yeah,
It's Egan, Apple Valley, Rosemont.
and they're large and they
But they
have,
have
kind of do their own
They
thing.
do their own.
Yeah, they have.
They're not a
5
part
high
of
schools,
it.
I think.
Yeah, something like
They're not a
that.
part.
Egan,
Apple
No,
Valley,
4.
Rosemont,
Sure, 4.
the
Eastview.
Eastview, but then they also have the School of Environmental Sciences.
Oh, that's right. Yep, that's
Yeah.
the 5th. They're in the,
They're in
Shakopee is
the
part of 288.
288.
and Prior Lake is also in that one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Deb
Deb Polly's Prior Lake.
Ones that are closer together are still not part of something.
Well, it's kind of like it's kind of like district boundaries.
The boundary has to be drawn somewhere, and that's
Yes.
sometimes you're.
Makes no sense.
Okay, so I think we have any other thoughts or comments about our mid-year check-in on our 2 goals?
Not about these 2 goals. When we get to the point of talking about goals for next year, I think we'll want to revisit and reevaluate the onboarding process for new board members, since this fall is an election year.
True.
Yep, good point.
And I got feedback from a new board member in a different district today that her district's onboarding was incomplete, shall we say. So made me feel proud of ours and made me think, oh, we should make sure we continue that practice
Yep.
for our, if we have anybody new join the board in a year.
I was gonna say, do we have any?
Well, there
Well,
are 4 spots up
so-
for election,
Yeah, Abigail,
In fall.
myself,
and Sue.
Scott, and Sue will be up for re-election if we choose to run again.
Right.
I'm not making that decision for everybody.
We should assume that,
Determined.
we should at least be prepared for the possibility that at least one of us may not be returning.
Right,
And look at that onboarding when we're ready to talk about goals for next year.
yeah,
So,
I agree.
just throwing that out there to plant the seed for a few months.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so moving on, the next item is to talk about committee assignments. We need to bring this forward to the next board meeting on the 27th. And so we have our standing committees being policy review, negotiations, and legislative. And then we have board appointments to the AMSD, Burnsville Chamber, 917, Foundation 191, MSBA, the Minnesota State High School League, and the Hall of Fame. And then we would assign school assignments if we move forward with being committed to continuing the school assignments. So,
And I just had one thing to add. I think I'd reached out to you ahead
Oh.
of time about it.
yes.
So the idea, this is about the Burnsville Fire Muster. Now it's called the Burnsville Fire Muster and Festival. And the group of people that have been active have a governing board. They want to increase engagement within the community, engagement across the community, and have both participation and events be more reflective of interests of the community. So I had been approached to become one of the governing board members. And basically, when I had discussed this with Eric, he had said, see how it goes, then we'll figure out in January if this is something that we want to do. And I think that it is. They enacted bylaws in December, which are very complete. I think it's a great opportunity for us to be there. There are two different boards. There's a governing board, and then there's also a community board. And so as one of, I guess it would be an appointment, the Burnsville Fire Muster and Festival would be a 3-year appointment to the governing board. And then I worked with Dr. Battle on having someone from staff represented on the community board, which is Jason Sellers, our community ed director, which makes complete sense because he's got a lot of connections and I think he's already making a big difference. But I just wanted to bring that forward as an option for a committee assignment, not a committee assignment, a board appointment. And, we can add it, if we choose to add it, we could then, revisit it each year and just make sure that this is indeed something that we still, that we want to be part of. But I think it's worth the exploration.
And on that note, then in addition, we might want to add as a board appointment too, being a part of one of us representing the Citizens Academy for the Burnsville Police. And where they, it's just I'm not sure how often they do it. I don't know if they do it monthly or what anyway. But it's just a series of things where they take you through everything they do connected with the community, their jobs, what they're doing to improve the police force, and in communications with their relationships with the community, and everything from everything in their cars to, it's the whole everything. It's just people are interested in that.
I understand our involvement with the fire muster and being part of the parade, knowing that we also serve Egan and Savage. Are we setting a precedence or a preference to be exclusive participation in Burnsville and not in the other two cities?
Not necessarily. I think because it wasn't something that we sought out. Certainly if there was something in Savage, like the Dan Patch event, if that group approached the board and said, hey, we want to have your participation in that, or Egan Fest, for example, if it was something that we sought out, I think it would be different. But I leave it up to everybody to, decide.
How would it work? You said it's a 3-year term. How would that work if you're appointed and then you decide not to run for re-election? Then we would just appoint someone different to fill out the last
It'd be like
however long is
9/17.
remaining in the term, presumably? Because you would be on that in the
Yes.
context of your school board role, not in your private citizen role.
Well, and I think
I'm
that's a
assuming.
conversation to have, because in my opinion, I would step down and let a school board member take over, because they're more actively involved with what's going on the school board.
Right.
Serving as a past board member, my opinion, it's not active representation by the school district.
I agree.
Which brings up the 917 thing, because I know it's, the community member is also an option. I know we have done that in the past. It's certainly something to talk about, but,
Yeah, and 917 has the same kind of term thing too. I think it was like 2 or 4 years.
Right, and in policy, there is the option, if we're talking about, okay, who do we want representing us on the various boards?
Yeah.
Do we need to limit it strictly to active board members, and then once you're no longer a board member, your appointment ends and, somebody else replaces you? But that's a different conversation.
Well, why wouldn't it be like any other board assignment and just every year? Don't we change them every year?
Not all of them, no, not, especially if there's multiple terms to an assignment.
So like the 917 term is 3 years,
Yeah,
right?
and so I will maintain that, because because as another school board, you're not gonna wanna have constant
Constant
rotation. You're
rotation.
gonna want
Right.
consistency for governance.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought you guys changed every year.
Having
Some
just
of them
gone
you change.
through this with the Burnsville Hall of Fame, may I assume that, you mentioned they have bylaws, that it
Yes.
says that they may have a school board representative, or how is that?
Oh, is that?
Because I know
written
there
in?
was some concern that in the
know.
Hall of Fame bylaws, it said
Yep.
there must be a representative, and there was some concern that other organizations can't really tell us what we are required to
Let
do.
me pull that up. I don't think it's a requirement.
Okay.
I think it's 191.
A
Like,
representative
The
from 191.
representative from 191, but I will double check that.
Like may or must, because I think that was.
Mayor must, I think we changed one word in the Hall of Fame bylaws. and
Was to may,
Changed from
yeah.
must to may, exactly. And that was sufficient, because there were some legal concerns by saying must.
Yeah. It doesn't even, what it says is 9 individuals. The remaining directors may appoint or elect the number of directors necessary to increase the board to 9 or more individuals. It is desired that the board have 50% of the directors from various community and nonprofit organizations, 1 member from the city fire department, 2 or more members from diverse cultures, and balance of members from the Burnsville community at large. So then it goes to officers.
So we would be part of the Burnsville community at large.
Community at large,
Or not
yeah.
specifically. named.
It's not specific,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure they don't want to lock themselves in either for.
No,
whatever.
they don't,
It's good to
yeah.
have flexibility.
Yep. But I will reread this more closely, and if I find anything that contradicts what appears to be the case, I'll let you know.
Okay,
Great.
so how do we feel about adding it as a board assignment? Because we would want to edit this document.
Right. I'm okay with, I'd rather it reflect the reality of what's happening, and if we're going to have a representative on that board, then I would like for it to be reflected here. Knowing that we could change it if in a couple of years, they decide they don't need a board rep for whatever reason.
And if it's not required,
Right.
yeah.
Is there any assumptions of added demand on the district in support of the Burnsville Fire Master? So like, are we, as part of our service, kind of pre-assigned to bring in so many volunteer, those kind of challenges?
So the governing board is strictly a governing board.
Okay,
The community board are more the movers and shakers that are helping to, identify groups to bring in. My understanding is that Jason Sellers' role on that committee will be kind of his network of people
in a larger community.
in the larger community to bring people in.
Okay.
I will say I've had about 10 requests from is he considered the chair of the fire muster?
Dan Cayley?
Yes.
Yes, he is the
The
chair
chair
of the governing board.
for me and other staff. And so I need clarification about that too. To attend meetings, provide staff coordination for things, ideals.
I did not know that. So maybe if you let me know. As I said in my email to Jason, I'm happy to help.
That's what I feel. I feel like, before we commit to it, this is just my feeling, that we know more about it and the commitment they're asking. I mean, to me, I just don't know enough about it at this time.
So I
And a
will,
booth. So usually, as you know, we participate in the parade. One of the requests was to man the booth. So is that for all 3 nights? Because there's a Friday night. It says Friday night and Saturday, all day.
it's just
What is it?
Saturday. It's just Saturday.
What
That
was
was
the
Friday night
concert
also.
the night
Yeah, it's
before?
Friday.
The kids always go on Friday
No,
night.
the
Where were they?
the event is
Oh.
Friday, Saturday, and
Yeah, yeah.
So
Sunday.
not the Friday, yeah, so all those little details, that there should be a 191 booth.
Well,
So
it wasn't an ask. It was, in the context of the conversation, it's an opportunity if you want it. And basically, somebody said, it would be a great opportunity for you to have somebody there to talk to the community about your pathways, let people know about your pathways. Not for us to, fill another booth that they worry might be empty, but just trying to be a partner and, give us that opportunity. Whether we're there on the board or not, I'm sure that opportunity would be there.
Okay,
Got it.
but it's not a requirement. if
No,
we-
no, no,
if we
no,
can't
no, no, no,
approve it.
no.
Okay.
They're looking to promote the district.
Oh, sure, which
Which we appreciate.
appreciate. Okay, so we'll explore more before adding it as an official appointment.
So I will share the bylaws.
Okay.
Because those are really, the meat of it. And actually, I can just share the meeting packet so you guys can kind of get a feel for it, what was discussed at the first meeting.
Okay. Are there, and then you mentioned the Citizens League?
Yes, if
Police
anybody's interested in that.
Citizens
I find the police department.
Police
interesting, of course,
Academy.
'cause I always want to know, as far as what they're doing is, in the community, because you don't hear a lot of bad reports about police in Burnsville, so that's a good sign. But also, just being a little part of it too, I see some really interesting things. And then with the SROs, knowing that one, and then the one that I went on the nights out with. Very interesting, very personable, down-to-earth people, and they have some good goals. He told me a lot of community things that they're doing that I had no idea about. So, and they would love, they don't mind like coming to our meetings or coming to anything that promotes them in the district and letting people know what they're about. So, just like we all want to do for our community, so, seemed very positive. Well, but it was just an idea.
What?
We can bring it up with.
I guess the difference that I see with the Citizens Academy is that's more like a professional development or a training, as opposed to these other ones are more, we're representing the district in a meeting or some sort of a
Larger
specific,
community.
ongoing activity. I think the Citizens Academy is great, I'm just not sure, unless what we're saying is we would like at least one board member to go through the Citizens Academy training every year.
I see.
Because that's different than the other board appointments where it's more like you go to the AMSD meetings and
Which is
I go to the Hall of
larger.
Fame meetings, and so that represent the board at those meetings. So that's where I think it's a little bit different.
Well, we would love to have a board member to report back things that they're doing.
Hmm.
But yeah, I get your point. So just throwing it out there, when you said the fire muster, I just thought of that. It connected in my brain.
Sure.
Yeah.
We can table it.
Well, and I also know that there's 7 of us and there's a lot there. So there's a lot of, I mean, just
That's true.
wanna kind of think about that too.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, between I'm gonna send an email out, or have Jamie send an email out to respond to me of your interest in, committees, service, and, appointments. And if you have a particular school assignment you would want to, have.
And the
Can we
practice in the
keep-
past has been, we don't, for the school assignments,
We don't,
the
Select the
school where your
school.
kids are going would not be one that we would want to assign you.
yes.
Can we keep the same one that we currently have? Can we request to keep
Yeah,
the
you
same
can
one?
certainly
Okay.
request. And then also knowing that we've had, you know, like, I'm not sure if Abigail wants to remain chair of the policy committee, or,
Yeah.
I will likely not serve as chair of the legislative committee. And so would be seeking a chair of the legislative committee. You know, so those kind of pieces would be that information. If you, like if Scott wants to stay on the Hall of Fame, you know, or, you know, those, board appointments, just let me know, because then I'll kind of take everybody's information and fill this out. I know, I understand that, negotiations committee could be hard to fill, so
Well, and I
Well,
think,
maybe less so this year.
maybe less so this year.
yeah, I mean, what is it? At least during the 2 years of negotiations, you want to keep the committee the same. So this would be a fine time if we wanted to change membership.
Okay.
Yeah. But after this year, like starting this year.
Whoever's on the negotiations committee this year should also be on it next year.
Exactly.
Elections permitting.
Unless, you know, yeah,
Elections,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And if you appoint us to one that we don't want to go on, we can just state that?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think, I've not been on, seeing people's interests of what committees they want to serve. If there's like a,
There might be one that nobody signs up for that someone has to get assigned though.
Right.
that we,
That's a
but
possibility.
usually that's a conversation, because I know I was called to see if I'd be interested in moving from one.
I've not had that happen, so I don't know how that has happened in the past. So
So I think.
will defer to
because
you.
Eric had reached out to me,
Okay.
like, are you sure you don't want to serve when you're on this committee? I'm like, I'm sure.
That happened to me, so.
So if there's any holes or like no names, then I might reach out to people, you know, where there's a lot of overlap and seeing who might want to move from one preference to the committee that might need more representation.
I will tell you this when I email you, just to remind you. But the Legislative Committee and Foundation 191 meet at the same day and time every month.
Oh,
So we would not want the same person doing both of those.
got it.
I'll mention that when I email you. but
Unless-
Having spent a year doing both at the same time, it was a tricky
Unless
one.
we double up the committees and change the days
Unless we do
altogether.
that. Based on the
Oh,
current
that's true.
committee meeting dates, though.
Yes,
They meet,
based
because
on
actually I
this.
got here for the Legislative Committee meeting on at the same time as the chair and one of the other members, which reminded me, oh yeah, we meet at the same time.
Yep.
Can I just ask why the legislative committee meeting's at 5? Because it's like right in the middle of dinner time.
Isn't policy at 5 too?
5 or 5:30.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a reason behind because, I mean, like, board meetings are at like 6:30. So I just wondered why those meetings are at 5.
I don't know.
It's
That's-
out
I
of
assume
respect
part of
for
it is wanting to
staff.
have it at the end of the workday for the
Yeah,
staff.
for the staff, so they don't
Oh.
have to have a long break in between.
When we could meet earlier, if a committee can meet earlier, we try to do that, but sometimes it's not
I think I had a few 4 o'clock meetings my first year on the board.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
Okay.
yeah, I think so.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's just, I'm not saying it's like the worst thing ever. It just falls right in the middle of dinner time.
Great. Well, I think that wraps our workshop for tonight.
Who had 9:15? Who had 9:15?
Oh, yep, Tony wants me to, we're done.
That was a really, you gotta practice.
That was not very powerful. Yeah.
And I would just point out, Tony, 9:30, you were right on the nose.
No, that was.
Oh, no, that was.
That was you. Oh, well, you don't get credit. I thought it was Tony that had.